Al tore his gaze from the towering monstrosity before him to cast a disbelieving stare at his wife. Hands folded beneath her chin as if in rapturous prayer, Millie's eyes sparkled. She gazed at the house as if she had just caught sight of Buckingham Palace. He glanced back at the colossal 3-story structure looming on the horizon across a stretch of neglected lawn the size of a football field. The house did have a castle-like look about it, with that round tower spiraling upward from a disturbingly asymmetrical roof. The weather had finally turned mild after a brutal Kentucky winter, and they'd been able to resume the pleasant habit of an evening stroll after supper. The slight breeze that ruffled Al's hair, he must remember to stop by Fred's for a trim this weekend, still held a chill, but nothing like the icy blasts that had persisted all the way through the second week of March. Al preferred their regular route, which took them down Goose Creek's picturesque Main Street, but tonight Millie had wanted to walk through the town's oldest neighborhood to see if she could spot any blossoming jonquils. They spied sprouts aplenty, clusters of narrow green leaves with slender stalks straining skyward to catch the last rays of evening sunlight, but the blossoms were still tightly cocooned within their protective wrappings. Kind of like Al. He huddled deeper within the collar of his heavy jacket and looked again at the house. Millie seemed to be waiting, so he ventured an answer. "It's the old Updike place." A completely unenlightened comment, but a cautious one. 36 years of marriage had taught him a few things. Until he uncovered the reason for that gleam in his wife's eye, the wisest course was to stick with stating the obvious. She ignored him, as she was apt to do in concocting an idea in that brain of hers. "Look at the gables, all those charming levels of the roof, and the chimneys, and that bay window. It's absolutely gorgeous." He cocked his head to change his angle of inspection. Under no definition of the word would he call a broken, boarded-up window gorgeous. "Be expensive to replace that curved glass. Probably a special order." "And you know there's a veranda in the back. It overlooks the lake." The faint sound of alarms began clanging in the recesses of Al's brain. Surely this conversation wasn't headed where he feared. "It's not a lake. It's a pond, probably covered in scum. Water draws skaters," he cautioned, "and gnats." She dismissed his warning by waving a set of pink manicured fingernails in his direction. "That's what screens are for. That veranda could be screened in easily, and think how peaceful it would be to look at the water over coffee in the mornings. I'll bet there are geese or ducks or something. We could be like Katharine Hepburn and Henry Fonda in On Golden Pond." The volume of the alarms rose in his inner ears. Now she was imagining herself in that disaster of a house. Al didn't like the way this conversation was going, not one bit. "Those shingles are in bad shape. Bet they leak. I can't even imagine how much it would cost to put a roof on that place." A faint nod in answer told him she was barely listening. He added a note of sternness to his tone. "And I'd be afraid to step onto that porch. Looks like it might collapse. No telling what shape the rest of the house is in after sitting empty for so long. Must be 10 years since the Updikes left." "What a silly thing to say. It's perfectly safe." "How can you be sure? Nobody's been in that place in a decade." "Of course they have. Louise Gateskill says the interior is in wonderful shape, considering the house is over 100 years old." The ringing in his ears became a klaxon. Louise Gateskill was not one of Millie's circle of friends. To his knowledge, they didn't know each other well enough to enter into a casual chat about a deserted Victorian eyesore like this house. But a professional conversation? Louise Gateskill was a realtor. He whirled to study his wife head-on through narrowed lids. "What are you getting at, Mildred Richardson? Out with it." A wistful smile twitched at the corners of her lips. "Only that I've loved this house since I was a girl. I went to a birthday party there once. We ate cupcakes out on the veranda and played croquet." A quiet sigh escaped her lips. "I used to wonder what it was like to be rich and live in an elegant house like this one." She did not meet his eye, but continued to stare at the house. "And I happened to hear that the Updike brothers have finally agreed to sell it."